Welcome to episode 7. I want to talk about today about entrepreneurship, which is something I have the fortune of participating a lot, having been an entrepreneur for more than 20 years and maybe an intrapreneur, being an entrepreneur inside large corporations, which I think a lot of people are. If trying to do something new and innovative in a big company, I would say there's elements of entrepreneurship and all that. And I would call that being an entrepreneur. So I want to share some of my personal experiences and having lived this for most of my career. I think I've been an entrepreneur everywhere I've been and want to share some of the challenges and some of the attributes and perhaps give some advice and my 2 cents on the topic. It takes a certain type of individual, I think, to be an entrepreneur. And I think risk tolerance is certainly one of them. I think starting a business is a non-trivial exercise. And when I give advice to young people, I think, that's one of the things that takes a certain character of risk to succeed in business. And I think the goals when you're starting a business shouldn't be financial. You shouldn't start a business to have financial gain. I think it should be around some innovative concept that you want to make a difference. And I think it's the idea and the vision that is critical to entrepreneurship. And that's where you start a business or an idea to make the world a better place. And I think that's the founding start, something you're passionate about that you can invest a lot of energy in over a long period of time to continue to move forward an idea or a concept to try to make the world a better place. And I think that's step number one. There's a stat, a U of T economics professor showed that when businesses were more aligned around a goal, like a visionary goal, they were more successful than when they were purely financial targets. So after the 70s, businesses were more financially motivated. That was the primary goal, shareholder value. When that became a primary goal, the average success rate of businesses dropped as opposed to prior to a shareholder value being the primary objective. When there was a vision or some non-financial goal, the businesses were more successful. And I think there's probably many explanations for that. I think it's getting people to align around a non-financial objective and a vision to make the world a better place with something motivational in those businesses. And I think even today, if you look at businesses with a non-financial goal at its core, certainly it's important to have a financial goal because you can't succeed if you're not profitable. You can't continue to fund the idea. So I think having financial objectives is critical to continue to be able to grow a business. But I think having a fundamental innovative concept to make the world a better place is core. So starting with that, something you're passionate about, because I think another thing I see with entrepreneurs is there's this rush to succeed. And some interesting facts are, how long does it take the average business, the average software company to become $1 billion valued company? 25 years is the average time. Now, the companies like Facebook and Google that you see that are massively, wildly successful, these are one in a billion, one in a lifetime, one in a generation companies. They're not the average. The average business takes years to reach a level of success. And so if it's going to take you years, you can't be in a rush. Has to be something you're very passionate about because you need to stick to it. I think perseverance is key to success. When I was at Elevate AI several years ago, and there was Koshla from Koshla Ventures, one of the original funders of Oracle and a famous Silicon Valley VC, his comment was, as an entrepreneur, you need to survive long enough that luck comes on your side. There's an element of luck in business, right? It's an element of timing. If you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book called Outliers, he's saying that there's the analysis of folks who are successful around, like, the Carnegies and Rockefellers around the oil industry and railroads and things like that, that they were born in a decade and there was a certain alignment of facts in the world and opportunities in the world that allowed these people who are in the right place at the right time with the right background to succeed. Similarly, in information technology, the founders of Oracle and Microsoft, Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, these guys were around in a small 10-year period. And Bill Gates at the time was one of the earliest programmers. The church, I believe he was part of, they had a computer, and he learned how to program much before other people did, and had these alignment of opportunities, and being a very smart person at the same time and very capable. And so there's an element of luck and the world events that align to contribute to success. Not to say you can't be successful and not have luck, but I think there's always wild success requires some element of luck. So if surviving long enough, that luck can contribute. That speaks again to it takes a long time to be successful. So being passionate and perseverant is, I think, one of the strongest attributes of entrepreneurship, and that leads to success. So you can't change your mind every 6 months and be successful. Now, having said that, you need to constantly be skeptical about your own passion and perseverance. And I know I make myself crazy because in my moments reflecting amongst myself, I ask, am I wrong? Is my passion and my thoughts, are they right or wrong? And so you need to constantly ask yourself that, so you're not delusional and going down a bad path. So you need to, there's no straight line to success. So, even if I look at Daisy, how we started out 20 years ago bears little resemblance to how we're doing it today. Core idea is still fundamentally the same, in that if you make better decisions and you make companies more intelligent and allow them to operate smarter, they create profits, they reinvest profits back in the business, which can lower prices, increase innovation, which serves humanity better, lowers the cost of living, impacts poverty. That's the central idea. That was the same when I started in this field 30 years ago as today. But how the business has morphed has been those business realities of, am I doing this right? Am I maximizing the business opportunity? Because having success in business means you've also have success in the vision. So to bring this vision, if I believe that this vision is good for humanity, then I have to have success as a business to wildly disseminate the idea. And so how you implement the business is important. And so you need to constantly ask yourself, am I in the right path, the wrong path? You need to talk to lots of people and network. I know a lot of technical innovators tend to be introverted, and I know I was introverted when I was younger. And I think networking a lot, talking to lots of people with experience and ideas, I think that's a critical thing. So perseverance, self-skepticism, and an ability to be evaluate both the idea and your capabilities. Believing you know everything is bad. Understanding your weaknesses, knowing who you need to surround yourself to fill those weaknesses. So you need to be very reflective and self-aware about your ideas and your own capabilities. Networking, grouping with other people who complement your weaknesses and strengths. These are important elements around success. And then risk tolerance. For the first 15 years of running Daisy, the business was funded from revenues and my own personal income. As an entrepreneur, I was always of the mind, and my philosophy was, if I take care of my customers and I do right by my customers, and I take care of my employees and I do the best I can for my employees, I will be taken care of, like everyone else will take care of me. And I always put myself at the bottom of the pecking order. And so that created a thing of, when money was tight, I was always the last one paid. Your external creditors come after you. And so that becomes very stressful about people asking you to get paid and bills. And so there's a financial stress that comes from running a long-term businesses, because businesses do well, businesses do less well. And to succeed through all of that takes incredible risk tolerance and a thick skin to handle the stress of the ups and downs of business. And even big businesses that have tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue have cash flow issues at times, and have to go to the market and raise more money, take out loans, talk to their shareholders, delay payroll. These are all things that real big companies do as well. So it's not unique to being an entrepreneur in a small business. And so that's very stressful. And being able to deal with that, that's a type of risk tolerance that not everyone has. And so you need to have a thick skin to be an entrepreneur, to deal with that, to survive the perseverance. So it's never a straight line to success, never a straight line financially in terms of the ebbs and flows of finance. It's never a straight line in terms of the plan. The business morphs and changes. The environment changes. And so being passionate is so critical. So how would you come up with an idea to go to a product or a service? I think the idea is to, when I was at IBM, one of the great things I learned from IBM is what's called first of a kind development. So when you have a new idea, you never develop it alone. Find a customer who's interested in that idea and work with the customer to evolve the idea, and work with the customer so that at the end of round one of idea development, that it's something useful for that customer. That way you're not smoking your own fumes in a room by yourself thinking you have a great idea that nobody cares about, right? I think so. I take that to heart, and that was a really great learning from IBM, is that always work with a customer, whether that's a company, if you're B2B, business to business, or if you're business to consumer, you have an idea with consumers, find a group of people. If you have a social media idea or a consumer business idea, find a group of people who you can develop with to see that it's valuable to them. So always work with your end customer, be that individuals or companies, to test your idea and collaborate together, because you should never overly bias your thinking to your own way of thinking, because there's millions of people in the world and we all think differently and we all have different perspectives and ideas. And when you're coming up with a business idea, you need to make sure you get many of those viewpoints in, and to really understand the requirement, you need to work with your end consumer. And it may take several rounds of first of a kind, second of a kind, third of a kind development. I always say it takes 3 pilots or proof of concepts to really work out a lot of the details. And if you have a technical idea, being a technical entrepreneur, then technology is one thing, but understanding the business domain and the business world is something else. And so typically as technical entrepreneurs, we don't have that business background. So learning about the business domain comes from collaborating with business people. Large companies, a lot of them are challenged to be innovative because there's a lot of bureaucracy. And typically, innovation and bureaucracy are 2 words you wouldn't typically juxtapose, right? Because there are a lot of bureaucracy involved, and it's harder to be quick and nimble. And so they've tried to create innovation and centers of excellence. And you see a lot of big companies start innovation centers, and they try to do that, where they attract entrepreneurs to innovate and come up with new ideas. But the same thought thinking still has to apply, whether you're an entrepreneur, is you need to work with your end customers. I think big companies need to free these innovation centers or centers of excellence to be less constrained by bureaucracies. I think funding an innovation center with funding and having very little constraint on that, I think that's the challenge. Whereas innovators, as an entrepreneur, you start out with very little resources, but you also have very little constraint. You just go out and you're really out there doing it on your own. I think, can we bring some of those characteristics to big business? How do you do that? I think a lot of these centers of excellence have not been so successful. The jury's out on, are these internal innovation centers, are they generating ideas or not? The other way that big companies do innovation is they let small companies innovate and let the market, with investment capital or success of small businesses, innovate, and then large companies buy small companies and bring innovation to play like that. That's a typical path of innovation. So whether you have an innovation center as a big company, or you look to acquire small companies who have success and have created a product and have gotten beyond that proof of concept, are starting to grow, attract more customers. Big businesses typically do that. So those are 2 paths. So I think the challenge in big business is, how do you foster an innovation culture that is less constrained by the bureaucracy of big business? So I think those are 2 different approaches, and I think you can be successful in either one. I think both have their challenges and complexities. And a lot of what I talked about was for entrepreneurs outside of big companies, how challenging that can be to get to success. And then I think, how do you minimize the bureaucracy in large businesses to foster an environment of true innovation and rapid innovation? And still, I think applying that first of a kind mentality and perseverance. And success doesn't come easy, even in big cultures. I think in a big company innovation center, don't give up too quickly, right? I think the same argument applies, that perseverance has to be there, and the project may fail initially, but keep going. If you believe in the idea, work through those challenges. And maybe that's part of the bureaucracy, is short-term thinking leads to too short-term decision making. You can't, innovation is not a quarterly annual report decision. Innovation works on long cycles, I think cycles of years and decades, and sometimes years, or maybe I shouldn't say decades, but years and several years, 1, 2, 3 years. And business planning happens, quarterly and annually. So innovation and financial planning are on different cycles. So we need to adjust for that. Whereas entrepreneurs need to figure out how to survive long enough to continue to fund an idea and morph it and be successful enough to continue to fund it and grow it. Also, in educational institutes, we see a lot of innovation centers. Some of the things I've shared today, I've been fortunate, with the relationship with the University of Toronto. I've spoken at some of their innovation incubators. I think they're pushing young people to go start businesses very quickly as a career path. And it's a great idea for a career path. I think there's also a lot of things you don't know when you come right out of school that I think we need to temper that a little bit. I think in my own personal journey, working in large companies, I learned a lot about corporate finance and funding and financial management and all that people management. I learned that from large companies, and then brought that learning to my own entrepreneurship journey. And I think when you have university incubators with undergraduate students with little corporate experience, then there's a big gap that needs to be filled. So I think this incubators, although I think they're great ideas, I think it's not a journey for everybody. And I think we shouldn't leave the impression that everybody needs to pursue that journey to be successful, because you can have wildly successful corporate careers working for everybody. I think entrepreneurship is a very narrow journey for a small audience now. I think the world is changing a little bit. The gig economy of doing a lot of contract work or small piece work as opposed to having employment for a company. So capturing that change in the economy, I think is, having incubators is good. But I think balancing then that not everybody pursues that journey, that there's a lot of value in working first and learning a lot about some of the things you don't learn in university. The practical real world experiences, really working in big companies and working with customers, losing some of the idealism that young people have, having that tempered with practical reality is important. I think incubators try to bring that in by bringing outside experts and outside people to talk. All around in all elements, there's a balance of what you need to do to give up, and any one of those journeys is valid. But I think we also need to make sure that we're giving a healthy balance to the people in that and a realistic view. And I think there's no easy path to success. And I think we do our best. My personal sense is that there's too much emphasis on this incubation university kind of innovation journey. I think dialing that back a little bit, just my interaction with young people and the seeming rush and the desire to start multiple businesses and the way we measure people's success by, I'm an entrepreneur, I had an exit, there's a lot of glory put into that. For me, the exit will be an anticlimax. My journey has been successful. I have fulfilled a life, a career. For 30 years, I have had purpose. Every single day I wake up with purpose for my vision. And I've employed a lot of people. I've worked with an amazing set of employees who we've worked on this journey together. And we've had that. I've funded a life. I've paid my life and put my kids through school and paid my bills and all of that. So my journey has been successful as an entrepreneur. My journey will not be measured. Success is not measured by the exit. The exit is an anticlimax. And I spoke to one of our investors who's had a few very successful and extremely large exits. And they talked about their family member receiving a very, very large check after a very large exit, a successful 25-year journey, and that person being very depressed after a financial exit because their purpose in life has now been altered, and you have to seek a new purpose. So financial success does not guarantee happiness, and you shouldn't look to the future for happiness. You should seek that in the journey. And that we as human beings, the little I understand about human psychology, the continual desire to strive for something better is what fulfills us. And happiness is not something we should seek. It should be this striving, this constant striving to get to a better place. From as little as I'm hungry and eating, that's getting to a better place, to trying to succeed with a vision, that's getting to a better place. And that's the fulfillment of a journey. The exit and the end is just an anticlimax. And so having that view of entrepreneurship, that also puts you not in a rush. It's creating a life's purpose is what the entrepreneurship journey is about. And whatever happens at the end happens. But if you fulfilled 2 years or 5 years or 20 years, that's success in and of itself, and that you occupied yourself, you learned, you experienced, you interacted with other peoples, you paid some bills, and you walk away with growth. That's the entrepreneurship journey that I think we should talk more and more about, and not overly focus on the exits, right? I think we glorify the exits like we glorify professional athletes who make millions of dollars. I mean, I'm a tennis player. I will never make 10 cents playing tennis, but I love it and I learn and I get better. I will never be Roger Federer, who's made hundreds of millions of dollars from the game. But and that's amazing what they've accomplished, and take nothing away from those accomplishments, but we overly glorify those as opposed to the people, the everyday people like us who strive to be better. We should glorify that as well, as equally as much. So hopefully this was something that took something away from. And as always, please subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, and any comments, questions, feedback is always welcome. Would love to chat more if you have any disagreements or agreements, or you have more insight to add to teach me. I want to learn more and evolve as well. So thank you again.